What is happening, boys and girls? James from Sigma Strength and Physique coming at you with my go-to arm day. Naturally, I've got pretty crappy arms. They're long, they take a long time to fill out. So the good news for you is I've had to muck around with many different kinds of arm sessions and exercises, and I reckon we might be pretty close to optimal, I think. The two principles we're going to apply as we apply to everything is, one, lining the movement up so we're injury free. So it needs to be a movement that is not going to injure you, of course. Sounds stupid, but you'd be amazed. And the other principle, applying as much load as possible to the target muscle. And I reiterate, the target muscle, not just moving as much load as possible. So we're going to go through 3 or 4 movements that's we'll sort of superset. So we'll superset 2 together, and then we'll superset another 2 together, and I'm going to explain to you why we choose those, and we will all grow massive arms and live like legends. So this is me just doing my sort of warm-up sets for the elbows because I'm old. Right, first movement, absolute money for biceps, is a single arm preacher curl. Now, I'm using just a normal bench because some of you may not have a preacher curl bench. And the reason this is awesome is because of the profile, which means our bicep is strongest down the bottom there and weakest at the top. And thanks to gravity, this movement, this exercise matches that. So as the weight comes down to the bottom here, that's where it's the heaviest, and when it gets to the top, that's where it's the lightest. So profile is super important. And of course, the other consideration is how the upper arm lines up, which I'll show you a little bit later on another angle that comes up. Looking about sort of 10 to 12 reps each arm. Rep range I sort of tend to keep around that 10 to 15 to 20. Not so low rep because of just the stress it puts on the tendons on your elbow. And we're supersetting this with some one arm tricep press down. Again, line up is important. So we want to make sure that everything sort of lines up quite well with the pulley, our elbow, shoulder. We're not moving the shoulder too much. What you probably can't see is I'm actually trying to hold my scapula together pretty tight, or at least not let it, protract or round too much. That's going to allow me to shorten my tricep a little bit more when it gets down to the very bottom. So just a little trick there, which I don't know, maybe some people don't know. Again, looking sort of 10 to 12 reps. I love single arm stuff because I can brace myself with other hands. So bracing's super important. Obviously, you don't want to lose tension on a muscle because you cannot stabilize yourself. And of course, the other factor is we can use our other hand to make life more difficult and continue the rep. So when we're tired, we can use the other hand, assuming we can keep stable and get a few extra reps out. And again, as you know, pushing muscles to their limits is how they will grow, more or less. Now, what I'm focusing on here is keeping my upper arm, so between my elbow and my shoulder, as straight as possible. That's pretty important. There's a few considerations with why most versions of bicep curls are shit. One of them is our wrist mobility. Another one is the angle of our elbow pits, and the other one is, how our upper arm lines up. So this allows me, as you can see, I'm leaning into it, allows me to do my best to keep that upper arm straight, which is going to keep the tension on the bicep, and it's not going to go on to my elbow. I'm also driving my upper arm, my tricep, hard into the bench. So my my shoulder pit is on the top of the bench, and my elbow is not coming off that bench at all. So I'm just driving hard in and just really contracting that bicep to bring the weight up. There you go, give it a little bit of help at the end. Again, sort of around that sort of 10, 12 rep range. So I'll do about 3 or 4 sets of these. Weight goes up whenever I can. Each set tends to, with arm work, it tends to sort of scale up as I get warmer. You might laugh because I'm old, but believe me, most people that have trained into their late 30s with any level of intensity will probably have some elbow problems. In terms of the speed, it's just a controlled speed. So some people tell me I train super slow. I definitely don't. I train at the speed at which I can control the contraction. It might seem awesome to smash through some reps and move some heavy weight or do extra reps, but if that load is going somewhere other than the muscle, then that is bad news for obvious reasons. So don't be scared to leave your ego at the door and actually contract the muscle if growing muscle is your goal. If you just enjoy throwing weights around, then go for it. And we move some pretty good weight here at Sigma again, so it's not like we're into the squeeze and go for the pump. Definitely not. We are into bodybuilding, which means we've got to move some big weights. Like Ronnie Coleman said, everyone wants to be a bodybuilder. No one wants to lift no heavy ass weights. So again, just contracting hard, keeping the scap more or less pinned back, and just stabilising yourself. So you can see I keep moving around trying to get a good position. Stabilising is just very, very underrated. Now, on my last set of every arm exercise I do, I will do a drop set. So I think I don't worry what weight we're on there, doesn't really matter. But again, sort of going for my 10 to 12 reps, and then immediately on the same arm, I'll grab a lighter dumbbell and get out what I can. Again, just trying to keep that upper arm jammed hard into the bench and also as straight as possible. There's nothing magic about growing muscle. There's no magic arm exercise. We can't really isolate. We can certainly bias certain heads of the bicep, but I think that's incredibly overrated. The other thing that is worth mentioning is that, we do need to train arms. So anyone that tells you that you'll get awesome arms just doing your big compounds is probably lying to you, or is a genetic freak. And they would get better arms if they trained them anyway. So straight to the drop set. I think I was a bit ambitious here and chose a weight I could get like 2 reps on. So I generally try and go for a weight which can get me a pretty similar rep range to my working sets. So to conclude on this one, we did about 3 sets of these with a drop set, and same with the one arm tricep press down. Now we're moving on to our next tricep bicep combo. So we're going for a skull crusher. So what I'm trying to do here is bias the long head of the tricep, which is the biggest head from memory of the tricep. So we need an exercise where we've got our shoulder stretched back, because the long head attaches over the shoulder joint. So when it's stretched, it will be favoured. I think the body tends to favour contracting muscles or muscle fibres that are stretched from memory. Nonetheless, it's working the long head of the tricep, which we do want to work. Again, just choosing stability. I'm choosing a cambered bar here because it allows me to have a more or less neutral grip, which you can't see. You can see the bar here now, but you can use dumbbells, you can use a straight bar, it doesn't really matter. It's one you do want to load up on because it's a great movement. Now I'm supersetting this with just a straight sort of bicep / hammer curl. Again, I wouldn't use a straight bar just because of the lineup. Doing my best again to keep the upper arm more or less in line. And I'll do about probably 12 reps of each. So skull crushers 12 reps, bicep curls, hammer curls 12 reps. So it gives a little bit of favour to the brachialis, the brachioradialis, doing a sort of a neutral grip as opposed to your normal supinated bicep grip. And as usual, on my last set, I will just try and get every half and quarter rep out possible, and I'll actually drop set it with some hammer curls here just to try and get everything out, because you can't really go much lighter than the bar that I was on. And these are much harder than they look, although they're getting sloppy. I like to sort of bring them in just very, very slightly, contracting the brachioradialis, which is basically the forearm muscle next to the elbow. So I'm actually squeezing the life out of that during each rep. And then just to finish off whatever's in the triceps, we just smash out 3 or 4 like cluster sets of tricep rope. You can use the bar, it really doesn't matter. I'm just literally just trying to squeeze everything I've got out of the triceps. So I'll do a set of whatever I've got, 10, 12 with partials, give myself about a 10-second rest, drop the weight a little bit, pretty much straight back in. It's just really trying to fatigue the tricep. So you'll see the theme that we do some heavier stuff early on with the one arm preacher curl and the skull crushers, and then we move into something that's a little bit sort of more higher rep / metabolic and kind of going for the pump. So it's not black or white in the sense that you do get some benefits from metabolic training, meaning sort of high rep where you're just jamming heaps of goodness into the muscles. But of course, we do need our heavy stuff as well. But on arm day, we need to be smart about how we apply our heavy stuff, just due to how vulnerable the tendons are around the elbow and the forearm. So I think this is a pretty good setup that I've put together for myself, and if you don't have elbow issues, that's awesome, but just so many people do. They just sort of spring out of the blue. So this is not not losing anything by training this way. We're actually maximising our training, because these are wicked movements that are loading the muscle. We're just being smart about it and not slapping weight around. But any comments, questions, please post. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and let's get massive.